You are standing on a beach in Turkey, and the war is finally over. Behind you, a city is burning. In front of you, 560 miles of open water, and then home. You have been gone 10 years already. Your son was a newborn when you left. He can vote now, if they had voting. You get on the boat. You will not see your house again for another decade. So here is the question. What takes 10 years? Because we can actually check this. In 1985, a British explorer named Tim Severin commissioned a master shipwright on the island of Spetses to hand-build a 54-foot replica of a Bronze Age galley. Then he sailed it from Troy toward Ithaca, using only the navigation rules available in Odysseus's era. No engine, no charts, no GPS, 20 oarsmen and a square sail. It took him a summer, not a decade, a summer. So what did Odysseus actually do with the other 9.5 years? Let's start with what we know is real. Troy exists. That part is settled. In the 1870s, a German businessman named Heinrich Schliemann started digging at a mound called Hisarlik in northwestern Turkey, convinced that Homer was describing a real place. He was right, and he was also so aggressive about it that he cut a trench straight through the middle of the site and destroyed a large amount of what he was looking for. What he found underneath was not one Troy, it was 9, stacked on top of each other like layers of a cake, spanning roughly 3,500 years. The layer most archaeologists point to is Troy 7a. It was a real fortified city on the coast of Anatolia. It was destroyed violently by fire somewhere around 1180 BCE. And in that destruction layer, excavators found burned debris, scattered human bones, and something quietly devastating. Rooms subdivided into smaller rooms. Storage jars sunk into the floors. That is what a city under siege looks like. People crowding in from the countryside. Everyone hoarding food indoors. Hittite records from the same period mention a city in that exact region called Wilusa, and a people called the Ahiyawa. Most scholars now read those as Ilios and the Achaeans, Homer's 2 words for Troy and the Greeks. So a real city, in the right place, at roughly the right time, burned. That is the historical floor we are standing on. Now, some of you are already thinking, fine, the city was real, but the 10-year journey home is obviously invented. Fair, but Severin's voyage found something stranger than that. Sailing the actual route in the actual kind of boat, he was able to make tentative or conclusive identifications for the land of the Lotus Eaters, for King Nestor's palace, for the halls of Hades, and for the roving rocks. The geography holds up. The distances make sense. The winds do what Homer says they do. The route is real. The 10 years are not. Which means the delay was never about the sea. It was about the man steering. Let's walk it. First stop out of Troy is a city called Ismaros. They raid it, they win easily, and Odysseus tells everyone to load up and get back on the boats immediately. Nobody listens. They stay on the beach. They open the wine, they slaughter the sheep, they cook, they celebrate. The survivors of the raid walk inland, come back at dawn with reinforcements, and kill 72 men. 6 from every ship. No monster involved. The first disaster of the Odyssey is a crew that would not leave a party. Then a storm takes them for 9 days, and they land somewhere with no violence in it at all. The locals are friendly. They offer the scouts some food. That is the entire threat. The men who eat it stop wanting to go home. Not chained, not enchanted, not held. They just lose interest in leaving, and Odysseus has to physically drag them back to the ships while they cry. The first real monster in the most famous adventure story ever written is a snack that makes you comfortable. Then the cave. They find it stocked with cheese, milk, and penned lambs, and the crew says the obvious thing. Take the food, leave now. Odysseus says no. He wants to meet the owner. He wants to see if the host will give him a gift. The owner is Polyphemus. He is the size of a house, and he seals the entrance with a boulder and eats 2 of them. Now, the escape is genuinely brilliant. He gets the Cyclops drunk, tells him his name is nobody, blinds him with a heated steak, and when the neighbors hear screaming and shout in to ask who is hurting him, Polyphemus yells that nobody is killing him. So they all go back to bed. 6 men dead, the rest strapped under the bellies of the sheep, out of the cave, onto the boat, rowing, clear. And then Odysseus stands up on the stern and shouts his real name across the water. He gives a blind man his name and his home address. Polyphemus is Poseidon's son. He prays, and every storm and every wreck for the next 9 years traces back to about 4 seconds of a man who could not stand getting away with something anonymously. He had won. He just needed the credit. Next comes the part that is almost too on the nose. They reach the island of Aeolus, keeper of the winds, who likes Odysseus enough to do something extraordinary. He seals every storm wind on earth into a leather bag, ties it with a silver cord, and leaves only the gentle west wind blowing. A guaranteed trip home. They sail 9 days. On the 10th, Ithaca comes up on the horizon, close enough that Odysseus can see men on the shore tending fires. And then he falls asleep. He had been steering the entire time, refusing to let anyone else touch the ropes, and his body simply quit. His crew have watched him haul a mysterious bag around for 10 days and explain it exactly 0 times. So they conclude it is treasure he is hiding from them, and they open it. Every wind on earth comes out at once and blows them back to the start. The most powerful gift in the poem is undone by a captain who would not delegate and would not explain. Then the giants at Telepolis, who come over the cliffs and drop boulders into a narrow harbor. 11 ships crushed. 600 men down to about 45 in a matter of minutes. Then Circe, who turns half the scouting party into pigs, gets confronted, backs down, and turns them back. And then he stays. 1 full year. No spell, no chains, nobody holding him. His own men eventually have to walk up to their king and remind him that they have families. Then the greatest hits. The underworld, where a dead prophet tells him he can still make it home if he leaves the cattle of the sun alone. The sirens, where he plugs his crew's ears with wax and leaves his own open, because he cannot bear not knowing what a thing sounds like. Scylla, where he knows in advance that 6 men die and picks who stands where without telling them. And then the cattle. Stranded a month by bad wind, food gone, men starving, and Odysseus goes off to pray and falls asleep again. They eat the cattle, Zeus splits the ship, everybody drowns except him. He washes up on Ogygia, and here is the number nobody expects. 7 years. 7 of the 10 are one island and one goddess who offers him immortality to stay, and Homer describes him sitting on the shore, looking at the water, crying. The longest chapter of the greatest adventure story ever written is a man sitting still, being sad, turning down a deal most people would take instantly. So let's count it honestly. Cyclops, sirens, giants, whirlpool, witch. Real monsters. And together they cost him a few weeks. Circe and Calypso cost him 8 years, and neither of them was holding him. Sleep cost him 2 catastrophes. Ego cost him the ocean. A party cost him 72 men. A bag nobody explained cost him the finish line. Severin proved the sea can be crossed in a summer. Schliemann proved the city was there. The archaeology gives you a real coast, a real war, and a real route. Everything else in the 10 years is a man. And that is why this story has survived 3,000 years, while every other Bronze Age epic quietly disappeared. Not because of the monsters. Because Homer understood something we still have not fixed. Odysseus did not lose 10 years to the gods. He lost them to appetite, to exhaustion, to pride, and to the specific human inability to leave a good thing while it is still good. He did not fight his way home. He survived himself long enough to get there. And if you are honest for about 4 seconds, you already know what your bag of wind is.